Ladies and gentlemen, it is free hit 29 season. And you know what? It's just time to jump right into it. We got to build our free hit drafts. It's time to cook, baby. Let's go. Welcome to the lab. This is where we are going to be going through the Gameweek 29 players and deciding who we're going to bring into our free hit team. But before we do that, I think the key thing to do would be looking at the fixtures and understanding what we're expecting from these matches. Now, when I look at these fixtures, I ask myself, where can we find clean sheets? And none of them really stand out. Why don't we just start from top to bottom? I think in the Brentford and Burnley match, I'm expecting Brentford to win this game 2-1 or maybe 1-0. I don't think Brentford will score that many goals, but you can't really trust them defensively. They've been conceding a lot of goals as well, but to be fair, their fixtures have been very tough recently, and playing against a newly promoted team, you got to back Brentford to get a result and potentially keep a clean sheet there. One player that definitely stands out would be Sergio Reguilon from a defensive perspective. He's played for Spurs and Manchester United in the past, so you know he has very strong attacking pedigree, and he's on the set pieces for Brentford. Though, I did see that Brian Mbeumo is back in training, so that could take some set pieces away from Reguilon, but he still has very strong open play attacking threat. So I think Reguilon is a very strong template pick from a defensive perspective. Moving on to the attackers in this match, I would expect somebody like Ivan Toney to have very strong effective ownership. I mean, it's a no-brainer. He's on the penalties. He's back from his ban. He's been pretty consistent, but over the past two matches, he hasn't really been the same Ivan that I've seen in previous seasons, but I just trust the quality of the player because, the upside of an attacker against a Burnley fixture could be huge. Moving on to the next fixture, Luton are playing against Nottingham Forest and Luton are at home. So I think in this fixture, because Luton are at home, I would back them to just score some goals. I mean, the responsibility and onus will be on them to play expensive. And I think if they do play expensive, somebody that you would like to own from Luton would be Alfie Doughty because he's on the set pieces for Luton. His open play attacking threat is very strong. His crossing is wonderful. And honestly, if Luton do push forward, it wouldn't surprise me if Nottingham Forest scored a goal or two on the counterattack. Two players that I think you can always trust to score on the counter would be somebody like Gibbs White, who's also on the penalties for Nottingham Forest, and also Anthony Alanga. And honestly, you could even consider a Nottingham Forest defender because over the last 5 weeks, Nottingham Forest have been in the top 5 teams for expected goals conceded. So you could consider a defender, but because they're not at home, I would just back them to score, so I would just avoid Nottingham Forest defensively. Moving on to the Fulham and Spurs fixture, I just think Son and Maddison are no-brainer picks. I think they're the two best players in the entire game that are playing in Game Week 29, so I think their effective ownership in the free hit will be around 100% in my opinion for both of these players, maybe even over 100% because I think Son would be the template captain option because he's on the penalties for Spurs, but the only question to ask yourself is, do you back Spurs to score a lot of goals? So would you bring in Richarlison as your third Spurs option? Or would you go for somebody like Udoki or Pedro Porro as your third Spurs option? And I think money isn't a problem, so you can go wherever you want. But I just feel like it's harder to get clean sheets. And I look at the other games, especially that West Ham and Aston Villa game, and I'm expecting goals in that fixture. I really doubt anyone really keeps clean sheets this week, but at least with the Spurs defenders, you get really strong attacking threat. Udogi and Pedro Porro are always pushing forward. They're just not really defenders. They're really attackers with the way that Postecoglou plays. So I think for me, I would just lean more so towards bringing in one of Udogi or Pedro Porro just because it's hard to find clean sheets. But I think Richarlison would probably be the one differential that I think you could go for if you wanted to be heavy on Spurs attack. Moving on to the Sunday fixtures, I think Bowen and Ollie Watkins, those two just pick themselves from this fixture. I'd expect goals in this game. Aston Villa, they honestly score in every single match. They're very consistent. Watkins has been scoring in every game. I can't believe he has more points than Holland this year. I can't even believe that. I haven't owned Watkins for weeks, so he's punished me week in and week out. I think over the last 6 matches, he has 60 points, so averaging 10 points per match. So Watkins' EO will be super high. Wouldn't surprise me if it's over 100% because there are some people that would look to captain him. But when you're playing against West Ham, West Ham are going to sit deep in this fixture. They'll probably counterattack. At least they have somebody like Paqueta that's back. And honestly, Bowen is a no-brainer pick. Talismanic. And I just think you can always back West Ham to score something on the counter, especially given the fact that Aston Villa have lost somebody like Kamara, who is their CDM. So somebody like Douglas Luiz will probably be playing in the 6, so the CDM position, rather than his CM position, which he was playing in the first half of the season. So I would be avoiding Douglas Luiz in Game Week 29. But I think the people to pick in Game Week 29, there are players that sort of pick themselves. So why don't we jump in and just create a template of the best picks to own in Game Week 29, start from there, and then build out the differentials that we want to go for. Okay, why don't we start up top and go with probably the two easiest picks, which are going to be the strikers in terms of Tony, who's playing against Burnley, and also on the penalties for Brentford. I think that's a no-brainer pick. And the highest point scorer, I think, in FPL, which is Ollie Watkins. So these two picks are no-brainers in my opinion. I don't think I need to spend much time talking about them. I think when I look at Spurs, I think Son and Madison will have the highest effective ownership from that team. And I think that makes sense to me. I think Son would be my captaincy option this week because you can always trust Spurs to score goals, and Son is on the penalties for them. And honestly, he has FPL pedigree. You know, like he's won the Golden Boot before. I'm a really big Son fan, so he'll be my captain in Game Week 29, 100%. And I think the other midfielder pick that picks himself has got to be Jared Bowen. I think these are the 5 template attackers I think everyone will go with. Let's move on to the defense. In terms of the players that pick themselves, Alfie Doughty, I talked about him already. I think his effective ownership will be around 80 to 85% this game week. And I think the other player that stands out, we talked about it earlier, is Sergio Reguilon playing against Burnley on the set pieces for Brentford. These are the 7 best FPL picks in terms of players that are going to be in all the free hit teams in Game Week 29. So whether you are on a free hit or not on the free hit, I think these are the 7 players that you should 100% look to cover up in terms of having high effective ownership. I think everyone else around this is sort of just your icing on the cake. Now, this is where you get to be creative. It is up to you to have your picks in terms of players that you would want to go for. But I think most people will lean towards bringing in Richarlison in that 4th mid spot. And the AI robots will recommend to you to get somebody like Gibbs White in your 5th mid spot. And that makes sense because he's on the penalties playing against Luton. And you know, there's people that are out here this week where Luton have a double game week and they're asking themselves like, hey, maybe I should captain Morris over Solanke as a differential. But the problem with captaining a Luton player is that they don't have the ability to play against Luton. And like, that's exactly what I'm thinking about on my free hit. It's that same logic of, you know, if Alfie Doughty is pushing up on that left back, then why don't I go to bring in the Nottingham Forest right winger who can attack that space? And that is Anthony Elanga. And that's actually the player that I'm looking to bring in. I know it's not going to be the template pick. And I think most people will look to bring in Richarlison, but Elanga is the differential that I want this week. Another player that I was thinking about was Mohamed Kudus, who's been really solid for West Ham. And I think he plays really well, especially with Paquetá back in the lineup. But I just think there's going to be so much space for Nottingham Forest to attack into, and it suits the way that Elanga will like to play. Now, in the last game, Elanga was playing in the striker position, but I think because that was against Liverpool, it was a different game plan. I think against Luton, they'll revert back to their normal, and Awoniyi will come in the striker position, and Elanga will be in the right wing position. So I think he can thrive in a fixture like this, and this is kind of where I go back to Gibbs White, and I think I'm going to be going heavier on Nottingham Forest to score goals. And I don't think that's a bad shout at all. The reason why I would be doing that is because I find it hard to pick clean sheets. And I think for me, it's just a no-brainer to go for somebody like Udogie or Pedro Porro on the free hit because you can't really trust many teams to keep clean sheets. And with Spurs, at least you get attacking upside. And I think in the defender position, it is totally up to you. I've genuinely contemplated between the Nottingham Forest keeper. I've contemplated even bringing Kaminsky there because at least he would make some saves. But to me, the best keeper this week would probably be Flecken. Because, you know, when he was brought into the Brentford team in the first half of the season, I was very unimpressed with his ball distribution, like his shot stopping. But over the last 5 or 6 weeks, he's played much better. And I think I just have much more confidence in him, as well as I think I just have confidence in Brentford to get results. So this is the team that I'm going to be free hitting into. I'm not sure if this is going to be the template team, but this is where I'm going to be. I do trust that I think I have a lot of the high effective ownership covered up. And I think for me, I just trust Elanga and Gibbs White. And I know most people will be on Richarlison, but you got to play FPL your way. And I just think it's hard to get clean sheets. And I think if I put anybody else in that defender position, I wouldn't expect them to get any defensive points. So at least with Udogie, I think I have a chance. And I think somebody like Elanga and Gibbs White can honestly score in this fixture against Luton at any point. All right, so that's what my free hit 29 team looks like. I wonder if that's similar to what yours looks like. Did you end up going for Richarlison? Are you even free hitting? What do you think about my differential of Elanga? Do you like that or do you not? Let me know in the comment section down below. If I provided some value to you over the course of this video, please just drop a like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see y'all again soon. Peace.